Hello, and welcome to the overview lecture, the always exciting overview lecture. Um, in this lecture, we're going to talk about two things. Again, I want to keep these things between 15 and 20 minutes, so you get a lot more in depth if you were taking this in a classroom. So the first thing I want to spend a little bit of time on is the definition of marketing, because that's what the course is all about. So it's helpful that we understand what it is that we're going to be talking about over the next 7 weeks. And the second thing that I want to talk about is the market uh, macro environment, or the marketing macro environment. I wore these all through the overview. These are like, reading glasses kind of stuff, so I can see okay distance wise. I need this. I got old. I need these to read. So the market macro environment, or the marketing macro environment, refers to factors that influence an organization's behavior, but the organization can't control it. So again, those are the macro environmental factors are factors that influences an organization's behavior, and an organization doesn't have any control over them. And so, for example, the economic environment, right? Inflation rates, interest rates, um, whether a country is in a growth mode or a recession mode, those all have an impact on an organization and the organization's marketing, but there's not much that an individual organization can do to influence the economic environment. So the first thing that we'll talk about again is what do we mean by marketing? And so I'm going to read from the textbook. I don't tend to read from the textbook a lot, but I'll read the definition from the textbook, and then we'll talk about some of the things that are in the textbook, and also the definition in the textbook, as well as Exhibit 1.1, gives a pretty good idea of what marketing is. So according to the book, and according to the American Marketing Association, marketing is the activity, set of institutions, um, and processes for creating, capturing, communicating, delivering, and exchanging offerings that have value for customers, clients, partners, and society at large. So again, marketing is the activity, set of institutions, and processes for creating, capturing, communicating, delivering, and exchanging offerings that have value for customers, clients, partners, and society at large. And one of the things that I like to talk about with respect to that definition is it's much, much, much different than the definition when I took my first Principles of Marketing course way back in, yes, 1977, the spring of 1977. So, for example, the current definition of marketing says nothing about a product or products. Well, when I took my Principles of Marketing course back in, yes, 1977, the word product was prominently displayed in the definition of marketing. So, and if you look at Exhibit 1.1, right, it talks about the fact that marketing creates value. So, I have a real quick and dirty definition of value. Benefits are greater than cost. And so, I like to use Chipotle as an example, and I realize that within the past couple of years, Chipotle has stumbled because of some issues with, bacteria in food, and some supply chain related issues. But where the benefits are greater than the cost in terms of Chipotle, if you think about it, the stuff that you get at Chipotle, I get a burrito bowl when I go to Chipotle, right? And I have to stand in line 10 or 15 minutes sometimes. Who stands in line 15 minutes at a fast food or a fast casual type place? But the benefit, right, and the standing in line for 15 minutes doesn't even get into the fact that, when I pay for a burrito bowl, it's going to be well over $6, depending on, whether I decide to get chicken or vegetarian, or barbacoa or whatever, right? And so, but the benefit comes in, right? The benefit comes in with the fact that I can, pretty much have that burrito bowl made exactly how I want it. So I always like to get double rice, right? Or maybe even triple rice. And I like a lot of the fajita stuff, and I don't need guac on it, and I don't need sour cream on it, and things of that nature. And so, you know, one is I can customize it to exactly what I want. A second is I can see it as it's being made, right? A third is that Chipotle prides itself on local sourcing, and the fact that it's animals that end up in a chicken dish or a beef dish or a pork dish. The animals have been humanely treated and stuff like that. So there's the value in the sense that even though I'm paying $6.25, $6.75, whatever for that burrito, I'm getting exactly what I want from the burrito. Second thing is the definition, or the Exhibit 1.1 talks about satisfying needs and wants. And a key thing to keep in mind with needs and wants is they continue to change through time. They continue to increase through time. And a really good example of it is Amazon, and the fact that Amazon in some areas now is offering a 1 hour delivery. I mean, if you think about what that means in actuality, and you say 1 hour, and I can remember back to when I was your age. You would place an order for something. First of all, there was no way of ordering anything online, but you'd place an order for something, probably a mail order of some kind, or maybe you'd order by the telephone, and if it showed up in a week, you were screaming with joy. And now, like I say, in a number of metropolitan markets, Amazon can get the order, process the order, fill the order, and deliver the order in an hour, right? It's mind-boggling, and there's a lot of stuff that needs to go on for that to work, really smoothly. But expectations continue to go up, and so when organizations are thinking about satisfying customer needs and wants, they have to recognize that the needs and wants change through time, and the expectations change through time, and something that might have worked 5 years ago could put you out of business today. So you go back and you might talk to your parents about when they were younger, and that they might have gone to Blockbuster to rent videos, and Netflix and similar kinds of institutions pretty much dug Blockbuster's grave, because there's really not a lot of Blockbusters. I mean, Blockbuster went out of business a number of years ago. The Exhibit 1.1 also talks about marketing entails an exchange. Here's a real simple example, right? You want 3 credits. You need Marketing 301 for a business core course. You pay John Carroll University a certain amount of money. I want to get paid. So we got a nice exchange. So what's the exchange? You pay money, I give you content, you pass the class, everybody goes away happy. Yay for us. Right. And then product, price, place, the 4 Ps, the marketing mix. Organizations are looking for ways to blend the 4 Ps: price, product, place, and promotion. They're looking for ways to blend the 4 Ps, basically to satisfy needs and wants, and to um, um, create value for customers. So, the way that a Panera blends the 4 Ps is very different than the way that a high-end steakhouse such as Morton's or Ruth's Chris blends the 4 Ps. And they're not right and they're not wrong, right? If Panera was charging ridiculous sums of money for a sandwich, a lot of people might not go to Panera, right? If Paneras weren't located where they're located, many more Paneras in a geographic area than there would be a Morton's or a Ruth's Chris. And there's issues there as well. And then Exhibit 1.1 also talks about the fact that marketing is performed by individuals and organizations. And if you don't think that marketing is performed by individuals, if you ever look at political campaigns, basically people are, trying to convince you to vote for them, or not vote for their competitor or competitors. And so you've got the marketing of individuals there. Okay, so we've taken a little time to talk about what we mean by marketing. The next thing we're going to talk about again is what is known as the marketing macro environment. And the book uses a really bulky acronym, CD STEP. I never liked that acronym. I much prefer PEST, right? PEST, political, economic, social, sociocultural, and then technological. And so we'll go the PEST route as opposed to the CD STEP route. And really, it doesn't make any difference. CD STEP is nice, but it just doesn't roll off the tongue as easily as PEST, PEST. All right. So the first one we'll look at is P, which stands for political, and it's really political and regulatory, what I call, very technical term, stuff. And you might be sitting there saying, well, I don't really understand how political and regulatory stuff impact marketing. And so from a political perspective, in the United States, and we will talk about other countries throughout this course, but in the United States, you have two major political parties. You have the Republicans and you have the Democrats. And the Republican Party historically has been a pro-business party and against a lot of business regulations. And so one of the things you might have, if you're paying attention to Mr. Trump as president, he is signing a number of orders, executive orders in some cases, to, if not eliminate, to roll back a number of regulations in a variety of different areas, environmental, safety, things of that nature. Democrats, on the other hand, have tended to be a much more pro-labor party. And so what you see oftentimes with a pro-labor party is you see, a lot of stuff that favors workers rather than maybe the businesses and organizations themselves. And I'm not here to say that one is right or one is wrong, but an understanding of political parties is really important. And we've seen events, throughout the world over the last basically 12 months that have really kind of rocked the political macro environment, and it's really a time of tremendous uncertainty. Things like what happened last year in June 2016, the Brexit, the vote in the United Kingdom to break away from their membership in the European Union. It's really not clear how that's going to play out in terms of cross-border transportation, trading between the United Kingdom and other members of the European Union. Right, we saw the election of Mr. Trump as president, very unexpected. He clearly has some, he has an America First agenda. He's talked about increasing tariffs, taxes on imported goods coming in from China and Mexico. He's talked about withdrawing from NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. So there's a lot of stuff going on. And then just this past, and again, I'm recording this a little early because, again, I'm going out of the country for 2 weeks. Just on June 8th, the United Kingdom, Mrs. May, called early elections, and she thought she was going to be able to increase the clout of the Conservative Party in the United Kingdom, and she ended up actually losing votes because there's still the Brexit thing is real interesting because while it was turned down, it turns out after it was voted on, a number of people voted, in favor of getting out of the European Union, in part because they thought it didn't have a chance of becoming reality. So there's a lot of stuff going on from a political perspective, and from a regulatory perspective, you've got things like, products that you can or cannot sell. From a promotion perspective, there are some products that you cannot promote. So, for example, in the United States, when I was younger, when I was in high school, that you could see advertising for cigarettes on TV. That hasn't been the case for well over 45 years now. So we've talked a little bit about the political and regulatory environment. The E refers to economic. And we had mentioned it briefly at the beginning of the discussion. And so, if you look at things like the gross domestic product of a country, and so one of the things that a marketer might want to be concerned about is what is maybe the gross domestic product per capita in a country. So if you look at a country that has a high gross domestic product per capita, that's going to make it much easier to, or not much easier, but you might say, hey, I got a country that has a high gross domestic product per capita, and that means that more expensive products are probably going to be an easier sell. At the other end of the spectrum, you've got what I like to call the bottom of the pyramid, right? BOP, not balance of payments, but bottom of the pyramid countries, and these are defined as countries where the people live on, depending on what definition you look at, they live on either $2 or $4 a day. And so that's a much different that's a much different economic environment, and things like pricing become important, portion size becomes important, how much of the product, what the product can do becomes important. So and again, an individual organization doesn't really influence a country's economy, but right, a country's economy can have tremendous impacts on how an organization conducts its marketing. The third letter in the PEST is S, and that stands for sociocultural. And one of the things that you can look at with S, or sociocultural, you can look at the demographics. And so, for example, the two most populous countries in the world are China and India. And if you look at those two countries together, combined, they account for roughly 1/3 of the world's population. And so, over the past 15 to 20 years, a lot of organizations have been figuring out, how can we do business in China or India, or China and India, because there are a lot of people there. Now, to be fair, the gross domestic product per capita is not overwhelmingly high in either one of those two countries, but right, there's a lot of people there, and both India and China have an emerging middle class. And generally, middle class people can afford, they can afford things like cars and houses and larger household appliances such as a television or a refrigerator. And so, the demographics of a particular country, right, become important. Things like the average or the median age. So one of the things, for example, in the United States is the population in the United States is an aging population, and the significance of that is that people who are my age, I'm a baby boomer, and I will be 63 in another couple of months, right? The things that I need, the things that I want, are very different than the things that many of you who are probably in your maybe late teens, early 20s need or want. So, as a population ages, so one of the things is, as a population ages, health-related issues might become more important, and you're looking at like medical care, as well as perhaps pharmaceuticals and things of that nature. And again, right, as I've said before, and you say, boy, I'm getting tired of you saying all these things. Again, as I said before, right, those kinds of things, the sociocultural environment will influence individual organizations, but an individual organization can't really, control how old a country's particular population is. And then the final, the T of the PEST acronym stands for technology. And, easy for me to say. It provides a really nice segue into the next topic, which is marketing in the 2010s. And just, there have been huge changes. I mean, if you think about the changes that have occurred from a technology perspective in your life, and then you go to a guy like me who, I was around when the cell phone was introduced. And the first cell phone, which was introduced in 1984, the cost of the device was nearly $4,000. Think about that, $4,000 for the device. That's not even the service plan. Okay, so we've talked about what marketing is, and we've looked at the marketing macro environment, and the clock on my video cam tells me that it's 19:45. So time to stop. See you next time. Bye.